The station air was thick with smoke, metal, and the sound of trade. People from dozens of species shouted, bargained, and cursed. But one corner of the market had fallen silent. A tall alien male dragged a young girl behind him, her hands bound in metal cuffs. Her skin was pale lavender with glowing blue veins running down her arms. Her eyes big, soft, and filled with quiet pain never looked up. "She's mute," the stepfather growled. "Useless in conversation, but strong, obedient, and young enough to learn?" Some humans standing nearby turned their heads, uncomfortable. The man speaking was from the Grak species, brutish, cruel, and known for trading anything for credits. His hand gripped the chain tight around the girl's wrists, as if she might run. But she didn't. She hadn't even moved since he dragged her in. She was maybe 17, still a child by some standards. But her form had grown enough to attract interest in the darker corners of the station. One human stepped forward. Tall, quiet, a little older, wearing a faded Earth military jacket. His name was Rook. He didn't speak much either, but his eyes locked on the girl's face. "She got a name?" Rook asked softly. The stepfather snorted. "Why name something that doesn't speak?" The girl's eyes flicked toward Rook for a second. Just a second. Then back to the floor. Rook reached into his pocket and pulled out a few trade chips. "I'll take her. You serious?" The alien laughed. "She's useless. A waste." Rook didn't blink. "Better with me than you." The alien shrugged and dropped the chain. "Fine. You want broken things, take her, ass." The stepfather walked away laughing. Rook reached out his hand to the girl. She didn't take it. But when he turned and started walking, she followed without a word. Rook's quarters were small bare metal walls. One bed, one chair, a stack of books in the corner. The girl stood near the door, her cuffs still locked. He gently removed them. "I don't know what he did to you," Rook said, sitting down. "But you're safe now. You don't owe me anything." "Really?" Looked. Her eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. No fear. Just silence. He placed a cup of water on the table and slid it toward her. She didn't touch it. "You hungry?" he asked. No response. He sighed. "All right, no pressure." Rook didn't ask questions. He turned away, started cleaning his weapon quietly, let her have space. But when he glanced back, she was staring at him again, watching him closely, carefully that night. Rook lay on the bed while she sat on the floor in the corner, curled up, arms wrapped around her knees. She didn't sleep, but she also didn't try to run the next morning. Something strange happened. Rook was boiling water for tea when he felt a small tug on the back of his jacket. He turned. She was standing behind him. He blinked. "You okay?" Her lips trembled. And then, just loud enough for him to hear, she whispered, "Don't leave me, please." He froze. Her voice was soft, shaky, but clear, and the words were perfect. "English. You can talk," he whispered back. She nodded once. "Why didn't you?" She placed a finger gently to her lips, then pointed to the ceiling. Surveillance. Rook nodded slowly. He understood. Something was wrong. Very wrong, and whatever it was. She had trusted him, only him, with her first words. Later that day, while cleaning the cuffs she'd worn, Rook noticed something strange. Tiny inscriptions, almost like coding, not just metal. Something more. Advanced hidden tech? He stared at them, heart starting to race. Who was she? What was she? And why had her stepfather been so quick to give her away? That night, she wrote her name on a pad he handed her. Her handwriting was careful, almost artistic, series single quotes. It didn't sound Grak. Ancient. Rook placed a blanket on her shoulder and said softly, "You're not broken." She looked up, and for the first time, she smiled, just a little. Just for him, but outside, in the darker sectors of the station, a signal had already been sent. A bounty had been placed, and men were coming to take her back. The door locked behind them with a soft hiss. Rook placed his hand over the panel twice, just to be sure. No one would get in unless they burned the whole corridor down. Serial stood near the small heater, quiet again. She hadn't spoken since those 4 words, "Don't leave me. Please." But that whisper haunted Rook more than any battlefield scream. She hadn't lied about being mute. She had chosen silence. For a reason, Rook poured hot water into 2 metal cups and offered one to her. This time, she took it with both hands, carefully, gently, like the cup might break. If she held it wrong, she didn't drink it right away. Just held it, letting the warmth settle into her fingers. "Why me?" Rook asked. She looked at him. "You could have spoken to anyone. You didn't, but you spoke to me." She opened her mouth, then paused. Instead, she knelt down beside the table, grabbed the pen, and began to draw on an old maintenance pad. Not words, symbols, strange circles. A line crossing them. Something like a system map, but older. A kind Rook had never seen before. Coordinates. She nodded once. "You remember this?" She looked down. Then slowly, she drew another symbol. This one inside a triangle. A small dot at the top. Then she wrote just 2 words under it. "They listen." Rook leaned back, tense. Who? The Grack. A government? Pirates? Or worse? Later, she slept finally curled up on his cot, breathing slow, arms wrapped around a blanket. Rook didn't sleep. He watched the camera screen near the door, half expecting movement, and just before dawn, it came. Someone tried to override. The lock. The alert flashed for 2 seconds, then stopped. Whoever it was, backed off. But it was a warning. They knew she was here. By morning, Rook had plans. He would take Serial off station, somewhere quieter, out of range. He had a contact an old friend running a cargo freighter. He'd get them both a ride. No questions asked. But first, had to know what he was protecting. He walked to her gently and asked, "What did he want from you?" Serial blinked. Her eyes shimmered softly. Then she raised her hand and touched her throat. Tapped twice. Voice, Rook guessed. She nodded. "Is it dangerous?" But she reached for the tablet again. She drew 2 faces. One was human neutral. The other had no mouth, just a glowing slit across its throat. She drew sound waves blasting from one throat, destroying something. A wall? A machine? A person? Rook stared. "Your voice. It's a weapon." She didn't nod. She didn't need to. Outside, the shadows of the lower levels, bounty hunters spoke quietly through headsets. The girl had been seen. She was with a human, not in chains. A male Grack growled into his mic, "Don't hurt." Her, the buyer, wants her alive. But the human, dead. Back inside, Rook opened a small compartment under his bed. He pulled out a folded uniform, scarred and faded. It still carried the old Earth emblem. He glanced at Serial. "If they're coming, we run." She looked at him calm. "Sure." And then, in the softest voice he'd ever heard, she said, "I trust you." 2 simple words, but they meant the world. They left his room quietly, moving through service shafts. Avoiding cameras, Serial kept close behind, her fingers touching the wall like she could feel energy in it. When they reached the hangar, the cargo freighter was already powering up. His friend waved from the loading ramp, cutting it close. "Soldier," she joked. Rook helped Serial up first. As the doors sealed behind them, she turned once, her eyes scanning the shadows. Something flickered in her gaze. Fear or memory? Rook noticed, but said nothing. Not yet, as the freighter lifted off, leaving the metal bones of the station behind. Serial walked to the window and watched the stars. "Stretch, Dot?" And then she whispered, barely heard over the engines. "They won't stop," Rook asked. "Who are they?" Her lips parted slowly. "The ones who made me." The cargo freighter hummed through silent space. Metal walls creaked as they passed into deeper sectors uncharted and forgotten. Serial sat cross-legged near a viewport, watching stars flicker like distant memories. She hadn't spoken again since they left. Not even to Rook. But she was writing, always writing. Strange markings on his datapad. Diagrams, symbols, circles layered over triangles. Lines drawn like paths across galaxies. She didn't explain them, and Rook stopped asking. She would speak when she was ready. Still, every time her pen moved, it felt less like drawing and more like remembering. The freighter's captain, a middle-aged woman named Dren, raised an eyebrow when Rook entered the control bay. "You two running from something?" she asked. "Not something," Rook replied, voice low. "Someone." "Speak at all?" "Sometimes," Rook said, "but only to me." Dren leaned back in her chair. That girl's eyes. Not natural. "You sure she's a kid?" Rook didn't answer, because even he wasn't sure anymore. Later that night, he found Serial tracing her fingers over a section of the wall. Just cold steel. She pressed her palm to it like it was alive. Her mouth moved. No sound came out then. The ship lights flickered just once. Rook stepped forward. She didn't answer, but she turned and placed a hand over her chest, then slowly pointed at him. At first he didn't understand, but then she picked up his datapad and wrote something short. "You're like them." Rook frowned. "Like who?" She hesitated, then drew a circle with 4 lines coming out of it. Beneath it she wrote, "The Makers. You feel the stars. You don't belong on one planet." The next day, Dren warned them. "We're being followed." She said, "No signals, but something's trailing behind us." Quiet ship, black hold, military stealth grade, not pirates. Rook checked the radar. Nothing. Still, he trusted Dren's instincts. She was never wrong. They changed course. But the feeling didn't go away. That night, Rook couldn't sleep. He watched Serial silently from the doorway as she slept curled under an emergency blanket. She looked peaceful, but her hands were twitching dreams. He sat beside her and whispered, "What did they do to you?" As if she heard him, she jolted. Awake. Her eyes glowed for a second bright. Electric blueby for fading again. She looked around wildly then at him, and her voice came out, shaky but urgent. "Where am I?" Rook blinked. "We're on a freighter. We left the station. You're safe." She pressed her hands to her head. "Too much light," she whispered. "Too much noise." "Noise." "My blood," she said, barely breathing the words. They filled me with it. Then she collapsed into his arms. When she woke up, she was calmer, and this time, she told him. She wasn't mute by nature. She was trained to be silent, voices especially. Hers were dangerous. Not just words, but frequencies. Her vocal cords were artificially enhanced, modified before she even had memories. Her stepfather hadn't raised her. He watched her, guarded her, until sold her off, likely to escape those hunting her, or worse, to lead them straight to her. Rook processed it slowly. "You're not just a girl," he said finally. She looked at him. "I was a project," she replied, "but I chose not to be." "Why me?" asked again. "Why trust me?" Serial touched her throat. "You heard me. Not just my voice. You felt it." Then she smiled, faint but real. But in the dark engine room, Dren was adjusting the core when she heard a whisper on her comms, a voice she didn't recognize. "Give us." "The girl, we let you live." She dropped her tools. "Rook," she called through the intercom. "You need to see this." Rook arrived. Serial closed behind him. The radar screen had changed now. It showed them. Not one ship. 3 all, closing in silent. No signal. Serial's hand shook. "They're not here to capture me," she said softly. "They're here to erase me." Rook pulled his old rifle from its case. He looked at her. "Then they'll have to go through me first." The ship shuddered, not from impact, but from fear. Dren's voice echoed through the hallway, sharp and tight. "They've locked onto us. No signals, no weapons, hot, but they're close to close." Rook checked the view outside the cockpit. Nothing, just stars. But something was out there. Serial could feel it. "They're listening," she said. Quietly, Dren turned. "To what?" "My heart, my breath, my voice. They're tuned to me." Rook looked at her. "Can they hear us now?" She hesitated, then nodded. Within minutes, they were moving fast. Dren turned the freighter into a jagged, spiraling arc. Rook helped her reroute systems, dampen emissions, and jam outgoing signals. Serial stayed low, wrapped in a cloak. Whispering to herself, her voice trembled not with fear, but with control. She's sinking with the whole, Dren said, watching. Readings spike, her frequency is flowing through the ship's frame. She's trying to hide us, Rook said, but it wasn't enough. One of the ships found them. The radar blinked red, then ... A voice came through the static. Return the prototype, or be erased. Serial's hands pressed against the wall. They used me. I was their test, but I wasn't the only one. You mean there are more like you? Rook asked. No, she whispered. They made one. Just one. Me. They couldn't outrun the black ships forever, so Rook made a choice. We hide where they won't follow. He said. Dren blinked. Where? A dead zone. Abandoned sector. No signals. No tech. Serial's eyes widened. She stepped forward. No, a place. Serial sketched the route on a dirty scrap of plastic, her hand steady. She wasn't guessing. She was remembering, long forgotten. Maps flooded back into her mind. She drew old gate coordinates that no human or alien had seen in centuries. It's not just empty, she said. It's buried. They entered the dead zone 3 hours later. All outside signals dropped. The stars faded behind. Dust clouds, the ship's lights dimmed. Nothing but emergency power. It felt like falling into the mouth of an ancient god, but Serial guided them through. Each twist, each drift, until she whispered, there. Rook stared through the front window. A ruin massive and metallic floated. Inside the asteroid field, it looked like a collapsed station, but it pulsed faintly with old energy. Is that a ship? Dren asked. No, Serial said. It's home. The freighter docked at a broken ring. Dust filled every crack. No lights, no motion, but the air was breathable. Rook stepped off first, rifle ready. Serial followed. Her skin glowed faintly in the shadows, like something in the station recognized. Her dot as they moved deeper inside, strange lights blinked unonly in places she walked. The ruin was waking up. Just for her, they entered a wide chamber filled with strange symbols, like the ones she'd drawn before. This is where I was made, Serial said. No, Rook replied. This is where you began. But before she could speak again, an alert sounded from the ship. Dren's panicked voice blasted through the comms. They followed us. I don't know how, but they're already here. Serial's body went stiff. She turned to Rook, eyes full of memory and fear. They're not here to take me, she said. They're here to take the voice inside me. Rook cocked his weapon. They'll have to take it from your ashes then. The sound came like a storm deep and low, vibrating through the floor. From outside the station, shadows moved across the stars. 3 black ships, silent as ghosts, drifted into view. No lights, no signal, no warning. Inside, Rook stood beside Serial in the ancient chamber. Walls pulsed dimly around her, as if her very presence had awakened something forgotten. The lights only came alive when she stepped forward. He watched her carefully. She wasn't scared. Anymore, she looked like someone who had returned to a place she had never seen, but somehow, it's always known. She stepped toward the center of the room. The ground shifted. A small pedestal rose from the floor. Covered in glowing etching symbols no one could read, except her. Rook raised his rifle. If you think that controls a weapon. She shook her head slowly. It's not a weapon. It's a gate. A gate to what? She looked up at him. To the truth of what I am. Behind them, Dren's voice came through the comm. There. Docking. One of the ships just latched onto the freighter. I can't hold them off. Whatever you're going to do, do it now. Rook looked at Serial. She stepped onto the pedestal, closed her eyes, and opened her mouth. The first sound was barely audible. A soft hum, no words, no melody. Just vibration. The symbols across the walls lit up. Rook felt the air shift almost. Bend, then the pedestal sank into the floor, and a massive door behind them cracked open, stone grinding against stone. Inside was silence. Not just quiet, but perfect silence. The kind that made your bones ache. They stepped into the chamber. It was wide, round, and lined with thousands of crystals, hanging like frozen stars from the ceiling. Each crystal pulsed faintly. Like they were listening, Serial touched one with her hand. It lit up brighter than the others. Rook stepped beside her, whispering, "What is this place?" Her answer was soft, the vault of echoes. "They put my voice here, my real voice. The one they couldn't control." "You mean," Rook said slowly, "your voice was split in two?" She nodded. "Half was put inside me, like the other half was locked here." Outside, boots hit the deck. Black armored figures marched through the broken station, silent, precise. Not bounty hunters, not soldiers, collectors. Their weapons made no sound. Their helmets were sealed. They moved like they had done this 1,000 times before, and they were coming for Serial. Inside the vault, she began to sing. But it wasn't a song, it was activation. The crystals responded, vibrating in harmony. Rook dropped to his knees from the force of the sound. It wasn't loud, it was just deep, like it reached inside his chest and stirred something ancient. Suddenly, his vision blurred. For a moment, just a moment, he saw what she had seen. Wires inside her throat, tubes down her spine, needles, voices calling her a project, tool, a weapon, and then nothing, just her, singing back to the stars. When he opened his eyes, the vault was awake. The door behind them slammed shut with a blast of blue light. Sealing them in, the crystal Serial had touched now floated in the air. Above her, she caught it gently in both hands. "This is the core of my voice," she said. "What they feared." "What does it do?" Rook asked. "It tells the truth," she whispered. "And when spoken, it can end commands. Break control. Stop all machines tuned to me." "Like the soldiers outside," she nodded. "They were built to follow silence. I will make them hear." Outside. The collectors lined up at the vault. Door.1 raised a hand. A code was uploaded. The door began to glow, red breaking from within. But then, the light reversed. Blue fire pulsed outward. One by one. Their suits shut down. Their helmets cracked. Their bodies fell no violence. No blood, just collapse. Serial's voice had spoken from the vault, and the silence they worshipped was gone. "Back!" Inside, she handed the glowing crystal to Rook. "I trust you now," she said. "Why me?" he asked again. She smiled. "Because you didn't ask for power. You just listened." Asterisk. The vault door opened slowly. Blue light spilled out across broken walls and silence-choked corridors. Rook stood with the crystal in his hand. Serial walked beside him, come but different. More alive now. Her shoulders were straighter, her glow brighter. Her silence no longer felt like fear. It felt like choice. But when they stepped out into the hallway, he was waiting. Her stepfather. He stood among the fallen black-armored bodies, alive, unarmed, smiling. Not the mocking grin he wore when he sold her, but something worse. A calm, knowing smirk. "I knew you'd return here," he said, his voice soft. "The vault sings to you, doesn't it?" Serial froze. Her lips trembled, not from fear. "From rage. You followed me," she said. "No," he replied. "I led you." Rook raised his weapon. The stepfather didn't flinch. "You think I'm here to hurt her?" he said. "I'm here to finish what we started." "You sold her," Rook growled. "You shackled her, drugged her, lied to her." "I protected her," the alien said. "From herself, from the ones who made her, from what she could become." "You're lying," Serial said, her voice colder now. "You never cared." The stepfather nodded slowly. "You're right. I didn't care, not the way you wanted. But I did watch you, didn't I? Every night, every breath. Because you were too important to fail." He stepped forward. "You weren't born, Serial. You were designed, built with pieces of a dead civilization. Their songs, their secret soul planted in you. You think your voice is yours? He pointed to her throat. That is a device. A relic. Your body. Just the shell. Serial stepped back, but Rook grabbed her hand and squeezed it. You're not a shell, he said. You're not a weapon. You're someone. Stepfather sighed. Then show me. Prove it. And suddenly, he activated a device on his wrist. The vault began to shake. Energy surged down the corridors. And behind him, from the dark rows, a second Siri. Single quotes all identical, same markings, same face, but expressionless, cold, and glowing. Brighter than the real one. Rook's eyes widened. What is that? The stepfather smiled. The backup. The one I kept for safety. If she refused the mission, this one would obey. Serial stared at her copy. It moved like her, but its eyes were empty. A puppet. You're not real, Serial whispered. The copy tilted its head, scanning her. Then opened its mouth. The hum came first. A low pulse. Then a scream. The sound hit Rook like a wave, forcing him to one knee. Blood rushed to his ears. Serial screamed back, but her scream was light. Music, not destruction. Two voices collided. In the air, and the station cracked walls. Split ceiling groaned. The stepfather ran. The copy began to glow bright, too unstable. Rook shouted, It's going to explode. Serial grabbed the crystal and pressed it to her own throat. Her voice wrapped around it like silk, and then she sang. A note so pure, the air turned still. The copy froze. Its glow dimmed, and it fell to its knees, then crumbled into dust. Rook coughed, leaning on the wall. Is it over? Serial didn't answer. She knelt beside the dust and whispered, That could have been me. He placed a hand on her shoulder, but it wasn't. Outside, sensors buzzed. The vault's energy had spread across nearby sectors. She had awakened something else. And far in the distance, dozen ships turned toward the signal. But this time, they weren't hunting her. They were answering a call. The vault had gone quiet again. Dust floated through the air, soft as Ashdod, where once two voices battled for control. Now, only one remained, gentle, steady, and free. Serial stood at the center of the great hall, her eyes closed. The crystal, still pressed against her throat, it no longer glowed. It no longer needed to. She didn't need a device anymore. She had become the voice. Rook leaned against the wall, wounded but alive. His ribs ached. His mind spun from everything he had seen. Two serials, collapsing walls, ancient technology that moved like magic. And yet, none of it surprised him anymore, because she was the miracle, and he had known it from the moment she tugged his sleeve and whispered, Don't leave me. They left the station ruins behind. Dren's freighter waited, battered but still flying. Dren helped Rook into the ship. She gave Serial a nod but didn't ask questions. That woman had seen enough to know when silence was smarter than curiosity. Once, on board, they jumped to deep space, somewhere safe, somewhere quiet, but not for long. Across the galaxy, something was happening. Signals once blocked were now clear, old machines, hidden in vaults. Heard a familiar frequency again. Dormant programs lit up. Ancient archives opened, and survivors. Those who had waited centuries in silence finally heard her voice, the voice of the lost. Back on the freighter, Rook stood beside her in the observation. Bae, I don't think you're running anymore, he said. I'm not, she answered. He looked at her carefully. So what now? Serial touched the glass. Now, I build what? She turned to him, smiling for real this time. Something that was destroyed. A name. A people. A future. He stepped closer, then say it. Not what they gave you. Say the name you choose. She closed her eyes, thought for a moment, then whispered, I am Alari. Rook blinked. That's not the name your stepfather used. She nodded. That's because that wasn't me. Serial was the shell. The sleeper. But I'm awake now. He reached for her hand. Then it's good to meet you, Alari. I smiled. And the ship trembled again this time, not from danger, but from arrival. Dozens of vessels now orbited near them. Some were old, some unfamiliar, some glowing with blue etchings, like her veins. They didn't fire, they didn't speak. They just waited. She walked to the comms console and pressed the transmit button. No fear, no translator, just her. She spoke 3 words. I am home. Far across the stars, other voices answered. A harmony, rising one tone at a time. Her voice wasn't a weapon, it was a key, a call, a choice, and this time it was truly hers.